I can see the sounds okay. Maureen Hilliard speaking.
Maureen, can you hear me? Bizimkini açar mısın? Maureen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Is this good?
Yep, very clear.
Okay.
But I'm getting an echo.
I don't get it.
Okay. Oh, it's gone now. Oh no, it's my echo, so maybe. I think I've just muted my. Yeah, it's gone now. It's my computer. So can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Clearly?
Yes. Everything is okay in the room. Şu anda yok.
Hi there, Tracy. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Maureen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Biraz ses açabilir miyiz? O. Bilgisayarın sesi. Bilgisayarınkini. Now it's good?
Yep, it's good.
Okay.
Hello, good morning. Are you here for the Small Island Workshop? All of you all? You all are here for the Small Island Workshop? Small Island Workshop. Yes, you're here? All right, good.
I know, I asked them to confirm it, yeah.
Yeah. Ah, excellent. Ready? All right, good morning all. Welcome to Small and Developing States Roundtable. We're starting now. So remote moderation, is Maureen ready to know that we're starting? Yes? Hello?
Hi there, Tracy. Yes, I'm ready.
All right. All right, so good morning.
Do you want me?
So welcome again to the Small and Developing States Roundtable. My name is Tracy Hackshaw. I am the Vice Chair of the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter. To my left is the co-organizer of today's workshop, Dr. Patrick Hossain of the University of the West Indies, and also the .TT CCTLD administrator from Trinidad and Tobago. To his left is Ellen Strickland, who is a board member, yes, of the Pacific Islands chapter of the Internet Society. To her left is Ms. Andrew Mangal from Fiji, who is, I'm not sure who she's representing here. I guess it's Pacific Islands chapter as well, ISOC. And when you speak, you'll just give a brief introduction. To my right, we have Mr. Carlton Samuels, who's an independent ICT4D consultant and chair of the National ICT Advisory Council in Jamaica. We're also expecting Ms. Deirdre Williams from St. Lucia, and she represents herself as an end user. Perhaps just briefly before we start, we can go around to our this is not a workshop per se, this is a round table, so everybody has an equal role to play. On remote, we have Maureen Hilliard, who will speak after we all introduce ourselves. And she's from Cook Islands, and she's going to introduce some of the topics today as well. So perhaps I can start on my right after Carlton with you, sir.
Hi, I'm Ping Hua Ang from Singapore. I'm the Vice President of the Internet Society chapter in Singapore and working in the internet space. I'm at the university, and I am doing a project on actually media policies of small countries. Hard to define small, so I ended up with new and emerging democracies. So I'm interested to be here because of your work in this area. There are some issues that are special or intrinsic to small countries regarding media and internet policy. So I'm really interested to listen to what you have to say. Yeah.
I'm Dave Farber from the United States, member of the ICANN board. What am I saying? ISOC board. That was bad. Erase it. ISOC board. Too much exposure to them.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, oh, thank you. It's the second time I've done that. My career is basically academic, University of Pennsylvania and Carnegie Mellon recently, and former chief technologist at our Federal Communication Commission, and on the board of Electronic Frontier Foundation for a long, long time. So I'm interested in bringing networks to people in diverse places, and the small countries, especially in small islands, produce an interesting set of problems and opportunities.
All right, thank you.
I'm Bob Hinden. I'm the current chair of the ISOC board, and I've been involved with ISOC since it was first created at different levels. I've been active in the ITF since the beginning of the ITF, or before the ITF. That's how I first met Dave. So I'm very interested in seeing what is happening about bringing the internet to small islands. Please
stay close to the microphone and some parts
Okay, I have to speak closer to the microphone. And I'm particularly very interested in, bringing the internet to small islands. And I've also occasionally sailed a sailboat to islands in different places. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Welcome. There's Deirdre. Join us here, Deirdre. Gentleman in the very stylish hat.
Yeah, hello everyone, good morning. My name is Kristo Helasvu. I come from Finland. Even though it's not an island, I do fancy some small islands and came here somewhat out of curiosity, but also if I would be able to somehow contribute to your efforts. I'm a member of board in the Finnish Electronic Frontier of Finland, so it's kind of privacy-related organization, and therefore I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, welcome. And our boss from the region, Mr.
My name is Sebastián Belagamba. I'm the regional director for the Internet Society for Latin America and the Caribbean. Close to the microphone. I'm very interested here on how to expand the Internet reach, particularly to small islands, but in general, how to connect more people. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Sebastian.
Hi, I'm Keisha Taylor. I work with a company called TechSoup Global that connects tech companies with NGOs that need technology, and I work on business and strategy development around data. Basically, I am also on the board of the Caribbean Diaspora for Science and Technology in the UK, and there we kind of try to promote the use and the development of STEM subjects by connecting professionals that work in different industries. I am here also because I'm really interested in continuing learning from what happens in different small islands, and as part of my PhD that I'm going to be doing soon in web science, I'm also going to be looking at business development in small islands.
Come, Keisha.
Hi, I'm Sintra Suknanan. I'm on the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for TTNIC, as well as I'm the chair of the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago Board. I'm going to take this opportunity to invite you all to another SIDS workshop that takes place on Friday morning. It's co-organized by myself and Keisha, and it deals with small island developing states and access to data. Thank you.
Thank you, Sintra. We have 3 new people joining us. Perhaps you could introduce yourself, starting with my colleagues from Aaron.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Nate Davis. I'm with Aaron. We are one of the 5 RIRs serving across the globe. Specifically, Aaron, along with LACNIC, are responsible for IP address allocation through the Caribbean. So we're happy to be here. So.
Thank you. Welcome.
Kathy Handley. I'm also with Aaron, and what Nate said. I'm sorry. Kathy Handley. I'm with Aaron, and I'm, along with what Nate said, happy to be here and hear what has to be said. Thank you.
Thank you. And gentleman in the arrived late there.
Since why I'm here for this forum is subject itself, because I'm originally from Sri Lanka, which is obviously a small island. But the other main reason is also because Tracy, you're hosting it because you were my moderator in ISOC, the Futures program. So I thought this would be a good time to meet you and hear from you as well. Good to be here.
All right, well, thank you, welcome. And right on time, Mr. Mark Carvell, introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Mark Carvell from UK Government, Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and also covering Commonwealth Internet governance agenda issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you're here instead of at the ICANN Town Hall. Thank you very much for coming. All right, so as we said in the workshop synopsis, this is not a traditional workshop where we're going to have presentations and the standard fare. We're going to have a full discussion, as fulsome as we can. Each of the discussants who are kind of here will stir up the conversation, but we do expect equal participation from everyone in the room. It's a round table, although it's horseshoe shaped, and we will try as best as we can to ensure everybody participates in our session today. What I will do is I will quickly toss, is Maureen ready? To Maureen Hilliard from the Pacific Islands Internet Society chapter. She's the current board chair, and ask her to make a few opening remarks and to address us if she can. Maureen, are you there? Thank you.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Is it clear? Can you just wave and let me know that you can... Okay, thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Yes, Maureen Hilliard. I'm the board chair of the Pacific Islands chapter, and it is so great to see Alan and Anju representing Te Kaisok at this meeting. Hi. It's a real pleasure to be able to be with you today, and I mean all the way from the Cook Islands in the South Pacific. I'd like to just start the conversation by introducing two challenges from the end user's perspective that we face in the Cook Islands, and I know that they're disenablers for many other countries in the Pacific, and most likely other small islands, developing states. The first one is actually the cost of internet connection and the impacts that has on our isolated island communities. And secondly, the lack of political will by some of our governments to actually support internet governance. Connectivity in the Pacific is actually developing at a fast rate. We've got O3B installed in the Cook Islands, and it's delivering fast broadband. And I know that it hasn't yet been unleashed at full capacity yet. We've got Pacific, it's another company establishing itself in the Pacific, and fibre optic cable options coming from all directions. But what is the killer for us as local end users in the developing economy is the cost of being connected. And the sad thing is that this impacts most on users who most want or need to connect, those for whom connectivity would be both a social and economic enabler. Going on to the second challenge, just briefly, I think that perhaps it's the main contributing factor to the delay of internet development in the Pacific itself. Lack of political will, and perhaps coupled with a lack of understanding by some government officials who are the main decision makers in our developing countries. Governments like to see statistics that say there are lots of users connecting to the internet, but there are very few support mechanisms or policies to ensure that users are safe and that the internet is available at a reasonable cost. I won't go on too much more because I know that there are others who want to say more, but thank you, Tracy, for allowing me to be part of this session, and I'll pass on to Alan and Anju, who can probably contribute more. Thank you. Who will be able to contribute more. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Maureen. And as you said, we'll toss to Ellen. So just to remind everybody what we're doing here today, we are trying to understand whether or not the issues related to infrastructure in small and developing states, such as water, sewage, poverty, transport, and so on, do they outweigh relationship to infrastructure on the internet and communication side? Or as a matter of fact, can the internet and communication issues, the infrastructure related to that, can they assist with affecting and changing and making significant impact on the larger infrastructure issues that we face in our region, whether you talk about disaster issues, disaster preparedness issues, climate change issues, and so on. So, Ellen, on that note, maybe you could give us a little bit of a big, small island position. Ellen is from New Zealand.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I think, so I'm Vice Chair of the Pacific Islands. I board, chapter board, and but I also work for Internet NZ, which we're the .nz domain name, and work with the community in New Zealand, but also a mandate in the Pacific to support development of the internet there. And I think the focus of the roundtable is very interesting to me in terms of the concept of information society and knowledge economy, and that, you know, if you look back over the last 15 years, maybe now, look back to the late 90s and the World Bank sort of focus on this, that there have been at times a focus on information society and knowledge economy in a way that has neglected the realities and needs of basic development. Assumptions, you know, made with the best intention that if you just focus on the internet and the information society, you know, knowledge economy, everything else will be taken care of. And it's pretty clear that does not happen now. And, you know, conversely, as a reaction, perhaps, there you hear a lot of people that really, you know, are frustrated, and so they want to focus on the really basic, important stuff. You know, as you said, you know, health, you know, really true, you know, sort of poverty issues, infrastructure, and I think that it's created a bit of a tension, you know, between that sort of agenda and people feeling that that doesn't address the realities, and people that are then dismissing, I think, the potential of the internet and information society, some of what can come with that, out of reaction to, you know, the lack of nuance that those concepts have. And so I think, yeah, I'm really interested in this roundtable and this discussion, because I think it is really about looking at the specific contexts of places to find how you can, you know, that in development, the most important thing is about the community, community-led development, about the needs, you know, of those communities.
Close to the microphone.
Oh, sorry. All right. The needs of those communities, and there are ways that the internet, you know, is so important to some of the basic infrastructure. So in New Zealand, we see more and more government services moving online, and for us, the digital divide in New Zealand, to sort of compare, has become not just an exclusion of some benefits or opportunities, but it become an issue of real social inclusion. To not be online is a deep disadvantage in terms of accessing, you know, being a citizen. Yes, and that's something that you see happening there that I think is, you know, going to spread, you know, those sort of things. So I think we have to think about the two together. And I just sort of close by saying the thing I think so important about the Pacific and about small island developing states is I think the changes that we see happening with the internet and ICT are so deep and broad and varied, and that to really learn about what's happening, you know, that there isn't a model, there isn't a information society, a knowledge economy, and that to really understand what can be and what is about looking what is at the periphery, in the small places, in the specific contexts. And SIDS provide a, you know, this amazing variety to look at and learn and move forward with. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ellen. And to keep the powerful ICT ladies in the Pacific going, we would bring Andrew Mangle from Fiji to perhaps Andrew, you could indicate who you're representing and your thoughts.
Thanks, Tracy. I work for the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, and we work with the 22 Pacific Island countries and territories. currently, there is the third international conference on the small island states. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but our organization, in collaboration with other organizations, UN, is participating in organizing the SIDS conference, and they're mostly looking at sustainable development, so not only ICTs, but also climate change issues and other issues in terms of NCDs, health, etc. In terms of the internet, I guess it's a democratic right to access internet. Everyone has the right to access it, but from a small island perspective, there's more sort of there are other challenges, such as, you know, access to water, access to resources, basic infrastructure, for example, roads and stuff. So if you take, for example, a farmer who needs to export, he needs to take his produce to the markets, it's really impossible because they have road issues. They not only have road issues, but in terms of accessing the markets, etc. So using ICT as a way to leverage this, also to sort of say that we can to overcome this issue, is what we are trying to work in some of the small island states. There are a lot of implications. For example, broadband access for everyone. We see that it's an important element for people to have broadband access in most developing countries, but some of these small island states are still using satellite, and this is one of the issues. And a country like, for example, Kiribati is Kiribati or Tuvalu is facing the threat of climate change. So they are more interested in climate change adaptation solutions rather than looking at what the overall ICT solution is, although we can use ICT as a solution. But right now, they're more focused on these sort of important issues, such as climate change. And having basic, like I said, having basic infrastructure and also the access to water and food, etc. Other things are like, for example, people are talking about the transition between, from IPv4 to IPv6. Bigger countries are concerned about this, and people are more concerned about reliable or, really good broadband access. But there are some really small countries like Kiribati that are still on dial-up. And so the question is, what are some of the issues that are actually stopping them from benefiting from some of the ICT solutions? Are like, for example, costs. Of equipment, it's really costly, and there are not many players in the region. So we sort of depend on some of the donor funding organizations and also partner organizations that come into the Pacific to sort of assist the countries. So, this is just a basic overall one, and we are sort of looking at while we know that these are the challenges and risk associated to dealing with some of these issues, we're also looking at trying to target the policymakers. What are they doing? So that's my guess.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So what I'm going to do next is, so Deirdre will go next, but before Deirdre goes, I'm going to ask if anyone wants to respond, because we had effectively a Pacific roundup. We had Cook Islands, we had New Zealand, we had Fiji, and speaking on behalf of other Pacific islands, is there anyone in the room, it's a round table, who wants to respond or to jump in at this point to any of the points that were raised thus far in terms of the issues related to this infrastructural problem? Andrew and Ellen both picked up on it as well as Maureen. Are we really focusing on the wrong area? Does ICT make any sense in the small island states? Should we focus only on these larger infrastructural issues? Or can ICT and can internet issues assist in small island states? Any reaction from the room on that? Just pop in and say something as you go ahead. No, let's get Singapore first, and then we can get Central. Oh, you're pointing.
How can I jump before a lady? Come on.
No,
all right, go ahead.
He's giving way to you, Centra.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, in terms of actual infrastructural development, how much of a push are end users being corralled into using data and applications on the cloud rather than having local infrastructure? Is that something that governments push towards, or there's a trend towards? And are there any privacy issues as well alongside with that that are being promoted?
All right, so we'll hold that question. You had a question. So we'll go and we'll just answer them in a batch.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at this issue and I see that this is actually very, very complex. First of all, how important is ICT and internet, even access, in the range of priorities that these small island developing states have? There's global climate change. Are we going to see in 20 years' time even smaller island developing states, right? That's one. And if you look at only infrastructure, I think you will be missing other possible threats and dangers. We now know, for example, that there is a risk of internet addiction, gaming addiction, for guys especially more than ladies, 8 to 12% globally speaking, higher in China and Singapore, but 8 to 12%. There are other risks in terms of exploitation of children online and so forth. So there are some risks there, and I think you can't just look only at the hardcore physical infrastructure. You do need to consider the social and political side as well. So I think that it's kind of a whole mix of issues. There needs to be some kind of ranking of priorities so that you can address them, and so that you at least be realistic. You appear realistic to the policymakers.
All right, thank you. Maybe I could. The question was posed to you guys about the specific issues related to the cloud and so on. Can you respond?
Yeah, I mean, to respond to that, for most of the Pacific, oh, sorry. Yeah, so with the cloud, the biggest issue we have really is backhaul, really poor, slow connectivity, and it makes, unreliable, it makes using cloud services not that attractive, expensive, difficult. I think, most people, it's not something that really, most places, and there would be some exceptions, but even then thinking of place sort of, don't know of any examples really of governments or anything even where there are quite good that they're using. Do you know?
Just to add, like what she said, there is a big issue with connectivity. So the small island states, they're still not looking at some of the cloud services. Although countries like Fiji, right, it's still a small island state, but they have like a national broadband policy which talks about reliable and affordable ICT services, and they are trying to have like affordable price with speed of 256 kbps. So this basically provides access to not only to the end users but also to the schools, and they are starting to explore, because of the e-governance project, they're starting to explore cloud services. Organizations are looking into it. For example, SBC, we do host some of our services on cloud services. We host our applications on cloud services, but we also have to think about in terms of privacy, security. So those are the things that we're trying to tackle in the countries. But for small island states, it's still a big challenge. And I'm sorry, I didn't really, you were talking about basic infrastructure, but also looking at social and also political?
No, just saying that it does seem to me that you do need some sense of priorities of the issues. First on a national scale or against all the other issues, and then within internet even, what are the sort of more pressing issues within that?
One of the things that the islands are doing, for example, in Vanuatu, they're basically leading the ICT innovation in Vanuatu, and they've got policy for the submarine cable and brings affordable internet access to the people. So they are also, these are the kind of people that are looking at cloud services. The government that is looking at cloud services. But what they've started doing is involving like a multi-stakeholder. In reality, it's working because they are not only involving the ICT sector, the Ministry of Communication, but also other sectors like agriculture, health sector. So they're also looking at all these development issues in terms of, targeting agriculture, health, education, and all. So I think this is one of the interesting ones, like some of the, how do you know it, some of the countries that are spearheading some of these interesting initiatives in the countries.
Thank you, Andrew. So I see a few more people came into the room. Perhaps you could just quickly introduce yourselves. Well, we can start with Sally, yeah? Who came in. Thank you.
We should have talked about the framework for ICT. Sorry.
There we go. Sally Wentworth. I'm the Vice President of Policy at the Internet Society.
Yep, perhaps. Just past, yeah?
Hello, I'm Susie Hargreaves. I'm Chief Executive of the Internet Watch Foundation, and I'm here because we provide a back office solution for reporting online child sexual abuse for countries without that option. So very interested to hear what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Christoph. I'm a colleague of Susie's at the IGF.
Thank you. To the end of the table on the right, yes?
Hi, I'm Rakesh Lachman. I'm from the Commonwealth Telecommunication Organization in London.
Not sure you can repeat for the transcript.
Hi, I'm Rakesh Lachman, and I'm from the Commonwealth Telecommunication Organization.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Good morning, my name is Amy Crocker. I'm from the InHope Foundation, associated with the International Association of Internet Hotlines, and we provide support to organizations to set up internet hotlines to tackle issues such as child abuse and illegal content on the internet.
Thank you. I understand there are a few remote participants as well, so when the remote moderator returns, we could have him say a few words on that. Chair of the ISOC board.
Well, I'm just going to suggest that when people speak, they speak slowly, because it's even hard for me to understand, but I think it's impossible for the transcription.
All right, excellent. Good suggestion. Thank you. So, as I promised, coming soon, Deirdre Williams from St. Lucia from the Caribbean will, Deirdre, you're going to give us an end-user perspective in response to what you've heard thus far. And perhaps what you can do is take a look at, in your island in St. Lucia and maybe the Eastern Caribbean, what are some of the issues that seem to outweigh from what you see the internet issues and all these, you know, as we said in a separate session yesterday, who is and all these things. What issues do you see that might be important that some of governments and other actors don't see as important for small island states regards to internet and ICT?
Good morning, everybody. First of all, my apologies for being late. My 8 o'clock meeting overran by 5 minutes, even though I struggled hard to escape. As Tracy said, I'm here as an end user. I'm not a technical person at all, but I've been being an observant end user for rather a long time now. In the late 1990s, I was looking for funding to go to a seminar at the University of Sussex at IDS. And when I went to the British government representative to ask if he would be able to help, he said, oh, well, you know, where we're putting the money at the moment is in things like water catchment and drainage and roads and things like that. And I said, but surely you need the information about water catchment and roads and things like that. And I got my funding. The seminar I was going to was about online information, but this was in 1997. I'm not sure that I've been very successful in convincing people that, in fact, there is a very useful tool here that can help. Listening to what has been said so far and listening to meetings I attended yesterday and meetings I've been attending for several years, there is a tendency to separate the ICT and the internet from the rest of life. From my standpoint, this is not the right way to go about it. The ICTs and the internet are tools that you can use to live your everyday life. Some parts of your life they won't help with. We have a current problem with the dam, the water catchment in St. Lucia. 2 years ago, we had a very wet hurricane. And the very wet hurricane washed silt and trees into the dam, and the dam is still half full of trees and silt. So this year, when we had a very bad drought, we had a water problem. I don't think the internet is going to help us with that one. I think that one needs bulldozers and things. However, somebody in the introduction said something about child protection online. That's a place where the internet might help us. There are lots and lots of documents in St. Lucia, reports that were carried out by all sorts of people over the years, and these collections exist in all of the islands, and because they're on paper, they sit on shelves and nobody reads them. That's a place where the internet and ICTs could help us a great deal. I think the secret is to stop having a digital divide between this is the internet and ICT on one side, and this is the life that we live on the other side. I think that divide must be closed so that the tools that are available can be applied to the problems. I really don't think that that is happening properly at the moment. And I remember reading an article by Richard Heeks, I'm sorry, I don't remember the author, but he worked in Southeast Asia, and he was talking about the computer and the cargo cult. You take a computer and you put it up on the wall in the classroom, problem solved. Your children will be educated. You don't need to worry any longer. Of course, he was making fun, but sometimes that's what happens. You hand out computers to children in schools, but you haven't thought what the children are supposed to do with the computers. Is that enough of an end-user perspective on?
I think so, and what I'm going to do now, thank you, Deirdre, is probably give another perspective. We have Patrick Hossain from the academic community from the University of the West Indies, and is also, as I said, a .tt administrator and is technical. So maybe Patrick can give a counterpoint to Deirdre's discussion as an end user.
Okay, good morning. So when Tracy asked me to speak at this workshop, first thing I try to do is come up with some concrete examples, because I like to think in terms of simple examples for a problem to be solved. And there are lots of examples when you compare costs for broadband infrastructure improvements versus non-broadband infrastructure improvements. We could talk about things like setting up smart grids and sensor networks to monitor the environment, etc. But one simple example I decided to talk about is something that affects me. I live in the capital, and my commute is terrible. And if, for instance, the government wanted to reduce my commute time by 50%, the transportation infrastructure improvements required would be tremendous. But let's say instead they spend that money or a portion of it on improving the broadband infrastructure, making it more robust, higher speeds, etc. And let's say, for instance, they allow people to work at home 1 day per week, all right, telecommute. So we're talking about a roughly 20%, you know, of course you have to spread it out, but 20% reduction in the amount of cars or traffic into the capital, but a 20% decrease in traffic, you know, in terms of delay, would roughly be a lot more reduction in delay because of the way traffic and delay works. So it would probably reduce the commute time by 50%, which is what we, you know, I was trying to look at. So you have a 50% reduction in commute time with a simple change or with the use of ICT, as opposed to building extra roads or implementing a rails system, etc. So this is just one of several examples you could come up with where you have concrete benefits of ICT as opposed to investing in non-broadband infrastructure. So again, I think as long as the governments understand the benefits that could be gained by introducing ICT and improving the broadband infrastructure, then, you know, we can make a good case. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So far, we've had some interesting points raised from both the Caribbean Pacific perspectives. I'm going to ask Carlton to sort of take the lead discussant role from here on in, and perhaps give us sort of a introduction to the larger discussion we're going to have now, and kind of maybe ask some provocative questions, Carlton. I know that's one of your strong areas. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tracy. Morning, everybody. So we're talking about infrastructure and all of the other issues. Here's something we know. The governments, especially in the Caribbean, they've now come to realize that sugar and bananas, bauxite and alumina, even oil and gas is not enough to erase persistent poverty. They've come to that realization. And at least they know it's not the only thing. And they have been looking on and seeing where knowledge is changing the landscape for economic and social development. And so they have embraced the idea that ICTs, especially the internet, is going to be important, critical to addressing these issues of underdevelopment, persistent poverty, and so on. When they hear talk about the information society and the global knowledge economy, they are also very much aware that what you have to do is to improve social capital before you can improve economic capital. So it's a conundrum. What do you do? Well, let's say all governments in the Caribbean, they've come up with three major policy areas of policy. One, that there is going to be ICTs in education, and there's everywhere a very big effort to improve social capital by making investments in ICTs in education, where the internet is very, very critical to that. Two, they have come to the realization that government services and government interaction is going to be enabled by ICTs, so everywhere there's an e-government initiative going on. And three, they have begun to understand that they don't much understand how these things work. So, in one sense, there is reality of all of the issues of persistent poverty and underdevelopment. In most of our countries, probably with the exception of Trinidad and Tobago, the largest draw on the national budget is debt repayment, followed by education. Just about everywhere. I say these things to let you understand that a couple of things are in the air, and you can see some things being teased out even as we speak. For example, as we speak now, while we have abandoned this idea that we're going to reduce persistent poverty by traditional agriculture, there is a sense that if you bring more technology in agriculture, we can improve agriculture practice, agricultural output in what we call non-traditional areas, and we could get exported. So for example, there's this areas of fruits and vegetables and exotic vegetables being put. There's this idea of using basic technology like SMS to connect the farm gate to the market gate. There's a basic example of giving just-in-time information about market conditions to farmers. So for example, in our breadbasket parish of St. Elizabeth, you don't have everybody bringing in tomatoes and melons at the same time, and the market price, the price crashes, the market goes, and everybody's broke. Even though you have a bumper crop, you're broke. So they understand there's a nexus between some of the traditional things that we're doing now and how technology might enable changes in practice that might improve outcomes. That is understood. The thing for us still is that there's a chicken and egg situation, because although that is understood, and although there's e-government and they understand that you have to have the infrastructure, technology infrastructure, the connectivity infrastructure in place to make that happen, so that your e-government initiative should not exacerbate social exclusion, but actually, as was mentioned before, inclusion. It's a method for social inclusion, because now that you're going online, government services are going online, you have to have the ability for all citizens, even those in the backwoods, to participate in the government and have access to government services and are not excluded from it. So we tend to see all of these things happening, and so we have to think, when all of these things are in a state of flux, you start thinking, what is the priority? You have to prioritize. It's not an easy task when you don't have too much elbow room, especially in government, to spend. It's around the Caribbean, quite a few governments are again in the grip of the IMF, and I say that advisedly. And this is created, what I love this term, economists call it, there's not enough, what is the space they say? There's not enough policy space for a lot of the things that we know could work, but simply because of the strictures that are imposed by these conditionalities from the multilaterals, the issues simply cannot be addressed as readily as they could. We have a situation where even if we attempt to prioritize, the priorities themselves are so unburdened that it is definitely not easy. I don't wish to leave you with the impact that there's not points of light in all of this. There are points of light. We are seeing development, especially in young people, of initiatives to exploit technologies in ways that are heretofore different, just different. And they are creating some economic space with these approaches. For example, we have these hackathons, these DigiJam events where we're getting young people to understand the digital economy and to enable them to see access points into the global knowledge economy, in development of apps, in development of games, and in creating applications for social, that have social value for health and education and so on. These things are happening, and it is not all gloom and doom, but there clearly is a contention between what we know can help the traditional and the means by which we can apply the help. That's the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlton. I think that was very well said, as I'm just hearing Andrew. I'm going to do a couple of things here. One, ask if there are any remote interventions from my remote moderator. Is there anything as yet?
Yes, Maureen Hilliard says, just agreeing with Carlton, I agree with what the others are saying about the current priorities of our governments on infrastructure projects like renewable energy, water catchments, disaster management, which are all very important to small island states. But such a directed focus ignores social and economic development, which must still occur and for which the internet is critical, so that there will be less reliance on donors to maintain and sustain these specialist projects.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And I'm going to put two groups on the spot. Since we are privileged to have so much Internet Society power in the room, I'm going to ask any one of the representatives here. We have the chair of the board, we have members of the board, we have the head of policy, we have the head of the Latin American Caribbean Bureau, to perhaps respond to some of those observations that were made by our discussants, and then put you on to put the Commonwealth on some alert. I don't know whether Rakesh or perhaps even Mark might want to have a response as well from a Commonwealth perspective as to what these issues means for them as a foundation, as an organization that somehow, has shepherded small island states over some period of time, and how they see it evolving now. So I'm going to first ask an ISOC representative to respond. Sebastian.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's do it both. I mean, okay, thank you, Tracy. I think this is quite important. In our perspective, we must. It's multi-layered, and I agree with what Carlton was saying. I mean, it's a multi-effort that we have to drive forward, and it's something that. Is key for ISOC as an organization. We have to understand clearly that we need to get there and we need to bring the internet to everyone. I mean, and our motto is that. I mean, the internet is for everyone as an organization. This is what we say, and this is what we strongly believe. And this is what exactly we're there for. So we are here particularly, I'm not coming from a small island development state, but we are clearly here to help, I mean, and to support. So I'm more in the listening mode here in order to learn how to better support the needs of, in particular in my position, the Caribbean region, but all over the world too. But I don't know if Sally wants to add something.
Thanks, Sebastian, and thank you to Tracy and others for organizing this event and encouraging us to come. It's very interesting, and I similarly to Sebastian, and very much in listening mode, I think one of the things from a policy perspective that we would like to understand is, you know, what are the barriers to achieving the levels of connectivity that are clearly in your sights, in your goals. There are infrastructure barriers, there are technology barriers, but there are also some policy barriers that might be within the realm of overcoming, possibly. But there's also, I think, an important role here, which I find very useful to see different countries in similar conditions sharing information. There are lessons to be learned in the Pacific that the Caribbean brings to bear, and vice versa. Having said that, we shouldn't stop there, because while the conditions are unique to this particular set of geographic conditions, there are, I think, pieces that can be learned more globally and lessons that can be shared more globally. And that's something at Internet Society we're quite interested in doing, is what are the barriers to connectivity that are unique, but then what are the barriers that are shared and can be lessons learned more broadly. So that's what I'm here to listen for. I'd be interested if you have any reactions to that or initial ideas of what some of those barriers might be, and then what role an organization like the Internet Society or other partners here in the room could play to help address those.
So I recognize, so there's a gentleman from Finland who wanted to intervene, also gentleman from ISOC, and then yourself, Keisha, and I had the Commonwealth as well. So let's go to Finland. I can't remember your name, sir. Can you just repeat it?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the nice introduction of the problems to the small islands in terms of internet access and social matters. I just wanted to highlight one point in that issue is that the problem with the small islands is not only about the infrastructure, about the internet penetration level, but it's highly related to the world politics itself and how the small islands were seen by the many old and legacy nation states as tax havens or some kind of places to throw away unwanted persons. So it is not only a question about how small islands will develop, but it's mainly and also heavily question about how those legacy nations will develop themselves. And in the political, in world politics and political world, there is an ongoing tendency of changing governance structures in the world. So in that sense, it gives very optimistic stance to the small islands, I would say, and it's very good situation for them. And also you need to remember the multi-stakeholderism, which is also connected to this same process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Some very valuable points you raised there. That we do encounter that in our region in the Caribbean. I'm not sure about the Pacific, but certainly in the Caribbean we have some of those challenges that you have raised. Yes.
I don't live on a small island, but I've over the years engaged in people who live on small virtual islands. In particular, in the United States, there's several interesting examples that might be worth looking at and see how they developed our Indian nations, which basically are poor, isolated, sometimes almost barren. Some of them, when the casinos arrived and they had some money, rather than spending it on mansions, they established funds to bring up their technology level for a number of reasons. One is that they needed to develop the people who lived on the reservation. But equally important, they wanted to be able to deal with people who were off the reservation in the diaspora, because they were part of the culture that they were losing as they moved off the reservation. Children there didn't know the language, they didn't know a lot of things. And they were very, very successful in taking an income which they knew was going to go away sometime. And it has to a large degree because of the opening up of casinos, gambling in the U.S., and investing it. And it didn't take a huge amount of money, but it took a lot of careful planning and careful understanding of what they needed. You might want to look at those. Also, again, in the United States, there are a lot of very isolated towns which basically have the same set of problems. They're surrounded not by water, but by non-connectivity, by governments that don't understand their problems, and they're being, I guess, economically challenged because, in fact, they're disconnected from the world. And many of those have taken a rational look at how they can get connectivity at an affordable rate. They don't have they can't get money from their states often, and they can't get it from the federal government. So they've had to be innovative. And so I'm suggesting you look not just at the small islands, but the small virtual islands and see what they've done.
Thank you. Actually, that came up in last year's discussion with, I think Cheryl Langdon, all from Australia, had made some observations along those lines that in a large country like Australia, which is also an island, there are those other separate pockets of communities, the Aboriginal communities, rural communities that need also to be looked at, and the problems that they have may be very similar to problems that small island states may face, and we can share as well. So I think that's a very good observation. Singapore.
Okay, 2 points. First, to play the same tune about prioritizing, Carlton, I appreciate the point that making priorities isn't easy, but you can see there's a lot of goodwill in this room. And one of the ways to get this to work is that you do need to tell us in what areas, if we put the buck, we will get the maximum bang. Once you show some small success, your classic, what Americans call low-hanging fruit, or quick successes, other people will come on and say, well, look, you did this little bit of thing, see what results you got. Now if you carry on, you will get other results. You do need to prioritize. What are the areas for which we get the maximum bang for the buck? Second point is this. I completely disagree with Dave that he does not live on an island. Okay? What? I completely disagree with you, Dave, that you do not live on an island. My work is on media policies of small countries, and we found that we looked at Singapore, which has a population of about 5 million. Turns out, based on Wikipedia, half of the countries in the world have a population bigger than 5 million. Out of 200 countries, half the population of the world have a population more than 5 million. So 5 million is kind of the median point. A lot of American cities are the larger part of the city, not just, let's take Washington, D.C., or Boston, or L.A., or Chicago, the greater whatever, is about 5 million. If you take a city in America as a country, it is a small island. It is a small country. You look at the politics, it is a politics of a small country. The issues are very similar to that of a developing country. I was just speaking to David Voice, the president of ISOC, in ISOC chapter in Washington, D.C. He asked me, how many ISPs do you have in Singapore? I was thinking 4, 5. He says he has one ISP. The price that he pays is high because it's an island. It is not a geographical island, it is an internet island. There is a monopoly there. The issues are very similar to that. It is not as high as the price that these guys in the Pacific Islands and Caribbean are paying, but you guys in Washington, D.C. are paying a higher price than me in Singapore because I have 5 ISPs. I'm paying a low price. $10 you can get unlimited Wi-Fi on the iPad for $10, which is about $8 US, unlimited. Right? And he's paying, I don't know, 70, 90, or something like that. So the issues are very similar, Dave. It'd be great to have you work on this, on your island called Philadelphia or whatever, right? Okay, thank you.
I think Keisha had wanted to intervene. Keisha Taylor.
I just wanted to point out that the World Economic Forum just had a network readiness report, and Finland was rated #1 and Singapore second in network readiness. And in that report, it stressed not just infrastructure, but also an enabling environment. So I think that one of the things to talk about what he said and what some of you guys said is also not just about having the infrastructure, but once you have the enabling environment to improve the infrastructure, everything comes together. And I completely and totally agree with what you said about the islands. A lot of the different issues are similar in small communities, in rural communities, you know, depending on where you go. Some of these places also don't have any access at all. They struggle with agricultural issues and diversification, loss of talent, all of those kind of things. So also I think that we should, during the course of this whole week, try to find ways to connect with each other and work together on some of the different projects and programs that you are working on. Thanks.
Thank you. And before I return to the discussants on the panel, Commonwealth, Mark, Rakesh, any observations, any thoughts? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. It's Mark Garvell, UK government, working with Commonwealth Secretariat and also the CTO and other Commonwealth entities in this whole area of internet governance and the priorities for ensuring that the knowledge economy becomes an important part of national strategies. I think on that, we've yet really to find an effective channel for supporting national policymakers on that in terms of developing national digital economies and strategies that will be integrated with social and economic development. I think that's an important message coming out of this discussion here, that that's not taking place in many small island developing states. In the Commonwealth initiatives that we've been developing, we have focused on some of the risk areas. We've, through the Commonwealth Internet Governance Forum, we've developed a child protection toolkit, and then we also have the Commonwealth Cybercrime Initiative. So those are progressing well, and they're making excellent progress. The toolkit was recently updated. You can find that on the Commonwealth IGF website, and the Cybercrime Initiative. There are several key projects in a number of Commonwealth states well underway. But as I say, I think this issue of support for national policymakers is something we've yet really to embrace as a challenge. And I think we and the Commonwealth Secretariat and the CTO need to talk about this and review how we might develop some medium or channel for sharing best practice for, you know, because as has been well pointed out, there are a lot of commonalities in the challenges facing small island states. We can I think try to find a way to engage policymakers in governments so that you know, mechanisms for support through aid programs and so on can help them out. So that's, I think, an important takeaway for me. I don't know if the CTO wants to add to that. They have a forum underway in Dakar, which perhaps touches on some of those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So, Rakesh, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Mark. Just to add to Mark, I think one of the things that CTO is also working on, I think one of the issues that CTO also tends to work on is really getting the funding. Funding remains a major issue for all our members. And the biggest issue we also find is most of the forum that we've been looking at remains a talking show rather than action. So we are working closely with the Commonwealth Secretariat and the UK government to make sure that we go there and do really some good action, get the fundings. And also, we have seen from our members, the biggest issue they find is really the cost of the consultants are really high. And that's why the funding is really an important issue. So if we can get the consultant fees to go lower and to get the expert out to the all the Commonwealth countries for the policy enabling, that will really help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There's a remote intervention, and there's a question from...
And Kevin Swift said, SIDS shares similar limitations to internal market dynamics compared to larger countries, which have implications on infrastructure players and access providers. The points raised on the enabling environment are highly pertinent in this respect.
All right, thank you very much. There's a intervention, yes?
This is Liu Chuang from Chinese Academy of Sciences. I also I'm a secretary of the International Organization on the Data for Science and Technology of ICSU. In the code data, we have a task group in the code data task group in developing countries. So the small island nations also is one of the tasks for us to work on. During the last 10 years after the visas, we work hard on the African, Asia, and also the Latin American. From our experience, developing country really is a big program during the last 10 years. So, but for the infrastructure, we have summarized these activities. So we think there's at least 4 specific points is more critical. And one is the connectivity. Second one is the national policy and the strategy. Third one is content, and especially the open resources. And of course, the last one is capacity building. So I think for the small island nations, and the task group also would like to focus on our effort during the next 5 years is on this topic. So first thing we want to do that is capacity building. We work with the UN in the UNDESA, and also the consultant committees of Chinese Association for Science and Technology to have the training workshops. This year we have the one several people from the Caribbean area, I think also. So we would like to continue the effort with you and to have the training workshops, and then to enhancing the capacity building first. And the second one, and also we find that there are very few the country, almost no any country from Caribbean countries to participate in the code data, some kind of the international organizations. So I think that is very important to these countries to actively to work with not only UN system but also others, NGO, and academy sciences, and work together. So it can get help from these international organizations. And then we have help to set up this, to develop the national strategies and policies. For example, last month, we have very successful workshop in the Kenya. And then Kenya set up this national strategy and to support the data centers, and then trainings, and then in the universities, and so on. So I would like to suggest to this group, and I also try to help with the ICSU and the CoData and several international organizations to work together on this issue, especially from for the capacity building and the openness and reuse of the world resources, world data resources. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very useful suggestion from you, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and we'll try and take that up. Perhaps after this session we could have a chat. So we're going to go back to the discussant panel, starting with Ellen. But before that, Internet Watch Foundation had an intervention. So we'll take that last one, and then we'll return to start with Ellen back at the panel.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Very interesting discussion. My comment is also a question, which is that the IWF deals with criminal content, and recently we've done a countrywide assessment of Trinidad and Tobago, and actually one of the things we're finding in terms of ongoing sustainability is that the initial contact we have is with government, the regulators, but actually the sustainability issue of any solutions is dependent on the internet industry. So my question to you all is, what level of multi-stakeholder partnerships are in place, and to what level is the internet industry engaged in the dilemmas and discussions that you're having today? Thank you.
Okay, and I think Sintra wanted to respond directly to that question, so Sintra, quickly.
Yes, I just wanted, this is Sintra Supnanan. I just wanted to mention that I was actually part of those discussions, and I was invited by the Ministry of National Security to take part in it. And I know that they did meet with the experts and several stakeholder groups, you know, business community, etc. I fell in the civil society group, and I know they also engaged with Childline, which is a toll-free child service anonymous tool. So I do know in the case of Trinidad and Tobago that did occur, but your point is valid and taken on board. Thank you.
All right, so we'll start with Ellen and I'll return to discussants to kind of summarize what we've heard and perhaps offer some solutions and some next steps in the way forward. So Ellen, can you start?
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to offer a bit of an experience that touches on some of what's been discussed, so particularly around prioritization, politics, policy, and the role of digital strategies. In that the Pacific Island region, and I'll try to be brief, I've just submitted a PhD on this topic, which is there's been a regional ICT strategy in the Pacific that dates back to 1999, 3 different iterations involving the ICT ministers throughout the region, which has been about prioritizing and linking ICT and the internet to broader development issues. So in '99, it was very much the ICT ministers. In 2005, it was part of a broader Pacific plan that had to do with the whole region and all of the priorities and having a digital strategy within that. And the most recent one in 2010 built a very specific framework for action that was really looking at detailed priorities, at actions, rather than just having an ICT ministerial meeting. They held a meeting with ICT along with transport and energy as well, you know, so looking at infrastructure. And, you know, these documents, you know, are really thorough look at the priorities, you know, through discussion of officials and ministers and trying to integrate, you know, the local needs with sort of the bigger picture politics. But I have to say, you know, what Carlton said about politics, the thing is, you know, a lot of capacity building was through that period into national strategies and policies as well. But the prioritization in the end, countries and the region don't have the elbow room to pick and enact most of that prioritization. It's donor countries, it's the development industry. It's a regional policy, it's regional prioritizations, but it's a multilateral context. And so what gets funded depends on the priorities and interests of the funders, not on the Pacific. And so, you know, 3 rounds of that, it's very disheartening as a region to see that in the end it comes down to a couple of big funders, you know, World Bank, you know, being the only major infrastructure, and then a lot of the other funding is just capacity building and hosting around the strategy itself, actually doing the things that we've identified through that process and that strategy. There's no money for that, and then it's put on the Pacific and the nations that they failed to deliver the strategy, you know, and so it's a double-edged sword. There are a lot of cool little things that have happened, but there's so much potential to have these processes And then, you know, we have to think about how do we bridge from having that in that multilateral context to get the priorities and the people who now have that capacity and interest to be able to bridge the money and what needs to be done. So, yeah.
So, they mixed up a little bit, Deirdre. Let me give you a chance to respond and offer some next steps and perhaps some solutions.
Well, I was interested to hear you say there are little things that happen, because we also suffer from, this is going to sound very ungrateful, and please remember I'm speaking as an end user, not in any way officially, but we get funding to have a strategic plan or a national plan. We've got lots of those. We've had some really nice ones with lots of specific things to do, and then somebody put them on a shelf and forgot about them because there was no money. If I were to make a suggestion, my suggestion would be, think about it like the dams. Remember the big dams that turned out to be a mistake? So why don't we try lots of little dams, small funding for small projects with a practical outcome at the end? Always in St. Lucia, I know, we like to have a big project and it dies. The ones that work, the ones that survive, are the little tiny projects that can grow into something really amazing if they're given a chance. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Deirdre. Yes, very useful indeed. Small projects with small islands. I think that's the big islands too. Patrick, perhaps you could offer some solutions and some next steps.
Well, I have no solutions, but yeah, we've all heard all the issues with politics and policies, etc. But in my mind, essentially, it's the fact is we SIDS have limited resources, limited funds, and we need to decide between enhancing broadband versus non-broadband infrastructures. And coming up, I think somebody mentioned, you know, if we come up with some simple examples where we can demonstrate that spending the funds on broadband gives a greater benefit than on the non-broadband solution, then we could start from there and build. Thanks.
Thank you. Perhaps Andrew, solutions, next steps, way forward.
There's so many solutions, but I don't think I'm the only one that can provide the solutions. Maybe you guys could work with us to provide that solution. Alan pretty much nailed it because, like she said, we have the Council of Regional Organizations in the Pacific that are working towards ICT for development. It's a framework that we have, and it looks at the role of the ICT and some of the key priorities in the Pacific. But like she said, that sometimes there's most of them are donor funded, and then there's a big issue of sustainability. If donors or partner organization, I'm not being negative here, but sometimes when they do come in, they do provide like a 2 to 3 year project priority, but then after that it runs out, and then onus is on the countries, and sometimes the countries are not able to work on some of these initiatives because of the lack of resources. Not only the lack of resources, but also ICT human resource capacity and training. This is one of the limitations that we have in the Pacific. And then when we have things like policy, ICT policies, not many people understand what the policy is about, because when you develop a policy, what about the end users? Do they understand what the policy means? And there are these policies that exist, but then there are some cross-cutting issues that they don't look at, like, for example, the health sector, the agriculture sector, the education sector. So these ICT or internet development framework is not really cross-cutting into these sectors. So these are some of the challenges that we also have. But, I mean, we have a lot of challenges, but we also have really interesting projects going on, and we have really some really quick wins and also successful projects. Like we have some, like you said, that we need to look at some of the success projects, but also to look at the failure. And things like, you know, interesting projects that we have is like integrating ICT and internet into disaster reduction platforms and alerting, to ensure that there's timely flow of information during emergencies. So this is something that we're currently working in the Pacific because of the issue of climate change. And while we have some of the donors coming in and partner organizations that are helping in these initiatives, but we need more people and more, partnership. So this is what I want to try to point out, that we really need partnership. And you are here in this room, so you can help us, because over the years we've been just coming and talking, but when we go back, there's nothing really relevant happening. And I know that it's a bit difficult because that we have our own priorities. We also have our own agenda, but in reality, if we can all work together, and this is sort of my way of saying that we need your help. I mean, SIDS do need your help. Apart from looking at some of the great success stories, we also need to look at some of the real solutions and best practices. And we need to find out who can start rolling these sort of initiatives. And we are not that many. I mean, there's only about 2 or 3, 4 people from the Pacific that have come in. I'm talking on behalf of the Pacific region. It's really difficult for us to get to these conferences as well. And we do thank like ISOC and some of the other organizations like you and DESA who are funding some initiatives and who are allowing us to be part of this workshop. But we need other people, some champions in the Pacific that you can also meet and also figure out how we can pursue some of the great projects that are happening and some of the challenges that we can look at. That's it.
So I'm going to give Carlton the last word in 2 minutes, but quickly, are there any remote interventions? All right, thank you. So Carlton, you have 2 minutes for the last word. Enjoy.
Thank you, Tracy. So we talk about how we make an impact and what it is. At the policy level, a couple of things are happening. The policymakers are really, we've seen a sea change in the Caribbean where they're really reaching out to ask for help. Get in line, help. Those of us who have information, who have expertise, help them. They're working. We're seeing small changes where small projects, community-based projects are making a difference with technology. The Rural Agricultural Development Authority in Jamaica is using SMS messaging to help farmers, to send them information, just-in-time information, to send them market information. They're setting up marketplaces, ad hoc marketplaces using SMS messaging. And farmers are going there and making money selling their produce. That's working. In Belize, the community health aides are sent out into the rural areas and they are being empowered using simple text messaging, sending them information on time when they need it in front of that person sitting there. Those things are happening. We have challenges. In the countries, we need to change the policy and the regulatory perspectives. For example, in every Caribbean country, we must push for the ability to create community networks with interconnection possibilities to the public network. That is something that is important. We can do that. It has worked in some places. We have put in several of these networks and demonstrated that they can work. What we need to do is to change the telecommunications policy so that the spectrum policy enables connections of community-based wireless broadband networks. Wireless broadband networks. We must push open source. Open source for education. This is important. It is a policy decision in the ministries of education around the Caribbean. Some of the ministries are beginning to understand the role that open source can play in education, and they are embracing it. But we have to push. They understand. The understanding has to go further out from the center to the edge. That is our mission, and I believe we can make a difference. Thank you.
Wow, so those powerful words there from Carlton at the end. Thank you so much for coming today. We have run out of time. I'm very glad to see all of you in today's session. I'd like to thank those who brought their friends, who brought their colleagues to participate in this small island development States Roundtable. And I'd like to see if we can partner again, talk to each other, continue the discussion after today's session. Let's communicate, let's continue the Roundtable online if we can. And once again, thank you all and enjoy the Internet Governance Forum. It's the first day, and let's go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi Gareth, can you hear me?
Hi, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, this is just a test for the microphones. Everything is okay?
Yeah, fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. Come, Brian. Come.
Hello, Deirdre. Hi. Is Gareth on board? Yes, okay, great, thank you.
Robert, is he first? Robert.